Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Lately.
Hi, Chairwoman.
Hello. I guess we should call you Madam Chair.
Sure. Whatever works.
I thought of that last night.
Video order here.
Hmm.
No, I don't have to worry about it
I
anymore.
think I like that better than chairperson. I agree.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, I better get this.
Good evening, Kern.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I did it all by myself, Kern.
You get a gold star, Dottie.
Oh, thank you. It's your good instructions.
Nothing to do with me.
Well, you told me how to do it.
Yeah. Even a squirrel gets a nut every once in a while.
True, true. Current, am I automatically muted?
Now, David has the power for that. He'll mute
Okay.
all of us.
All right, thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, David.
Good afternoon.
Hey, David.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Hi. Well, it is 6 p.m. on the nose, so let's get rolling as we have an esteemed guest here already queued up, which I never thought in my entire life I'd ever see our road commissioner on Zoom, but there he is. So before we get started, just as a reminder to everyone, we are meeting via Zoom, so we're meeting remotely. This is the joint meeting of the Lincolnville Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee. And we don't anticipate the Board of Selectmen taking any action, but should we, or the only anticipated action will be adjournment. We will do that via roll call, as is required by us under our agreement with the Freedom of Access Act, as declared under the state of emergency as declared by the governor. We do encourage the public to virtually attend, listen, watch on TV. This is not the public's opportunity, however, to ask questions or participate in the meeting itself. That time will come very rapidly in our budget schedule. But should any questions come up from this meeting that you weren't able to ask during this meeting, please feel free to forward those to the town office. I don't think I'm missing anything. And so in order to stay on the excellent schedule track that David kept last night, I'm going to hand it over to David, and let's just try to keep in mind that question and answer periods, let's try to keep after each section, and we'll alternate between the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. David, it's all yours.
Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I believe that Patria is on her way from being an attendee to being on the screen with us. Hopefully she can still hear us there somewhere. I see a couple of
I'm
chats.
here. I can
Oh.
hear you. And as soon as I finish eating my dinner, I'll put my real picture up.
Fair enough. I see the chats and that, so turn you off. Welcome back. As I said, just not that there's any chance that you'd be looking at a different draft, but it's good habit to be in. Just reminded everybody that we're working from the draft of February 9th, 2021, should be in the lower left-hand corner of your budget. Picking up where we left off, the first item up for tonight on the schedule is Highways and Bridges, which is page 15 in your budget book. And I think probably this is any objection. I assume you're all there. Road Commissioner Young has joined us this evening from the room next door to me, that way. Well, that way, yeah. And he's here should we have some questions. I'll just talk preliminarily and then I'll give Bernard a chance to explain to you what he foresees in the coming budget year. So within Public Works, Highways and Bridges, previously we've had a road commissioner wage, part-time wages, and FICA and Medicare associated with both of those. Bernard informed the board late last year that he was unlikely to seek reappointment to the road commissioner position. His term ends in June of this year. We have carried zero in the budget for the road commissioner stipend because, as we talked a little bit last night, we're looking, or the board is looking at combining duties of road commissioner with some other things. So there's nothing carried there. That being said, you will see an increase in the part-time wages line. We're going to have, assuming that the budget is approved, we will have a transition period for when we shift from having a road commissioner and some others to having the public facilities director. So we've upped the part-time wages a bit for the coming year so that hopefully we'll be able to bring Bernard back as at least a little bit of a consultant role for the coming year. We haven't talked any compensation with him about that, and some of that may be a little bit of a surprise, although I think I've told him that. That was my hope, dream, and aspiration to help us get through, obviously, the summer season, which is the busiest for construction on our roads, and help to ease the transition and an education process for whoever assumes the roles and responsibilities of the road commissioner. Beyond that, as you move down the page, you'll see pretty self-explanatory items. I'll let Bernard talk about these in just a second, but machinery, we the town don't have much machinery or any. We contract that out. We don't have materials except for what we purchase from others. It's not like we have our own gravel pit or anything like that. Miscellaneous and storm expenses, trash removal at our parks is carried here. And those are listed down below for where that trash removal goes or comes from anyways. Breezemere, Duck Trap, the beach, and some monies for a new Obscott Park. Sand salt building maintenance, electricity for the sand salt buildings, street and work zone safety signs, our paving program, and then obviously the big expense beyond paving is winter road maintenance. But maybe with that, I'll turn it over to Bernard to see if he has some specifics that he'd like to talk about. And then we can also answer some questions and jump back in the meat of it if you want to, Bernard, this chance. So Bernard, it's all yours.
Okay. We do going in the mud season here shortly. And the road started to soften up. And if we get another couple of days of road softening, I had Joy Road, Hollywood Road, all of them turned into mud. I did have to go down on Spindle Neck Road and haul gravel in to get it up stiff enough so they could still drive on it. And I don't know what spring's gonna make. I guess you gotta think about in the future, is get more of these roads tarred. I think we're down around 6 miles now. I'm not sure what the mileage is on roads on no tar on them. And with this road program we have now, of putting sand out, they sanding roads pretty heavy, and they have salt in them. And the minute we get a fall, they soften the roads up, and the grader comes along in the spring and grades it, and the salt goes down in it. So every time we get a fall, they turn to mud. And so basically you got to get most of your roads tarred. And as you know, we didn't get roads tarred this year. Fellows let us down on Moody Mountain Road and Fellow Road. That's to be tarred this coming year, and nothing changes for you people. And we got a couple of big culverts to put in on Maslin Road and on Townhouse Road. The one's going to be a 3-footer, about 90 feet long, and up on the Maslin Road under the power lines. It's got to be replaced, and the metal. And if I'm here, I'll put the plastic ones in, because I've had plastic ones in since 1980. And most of the town is about 90% plastic. And though that job's to be done. And I don't know if you're going to tar any extra roads this year. I know every time I drive down in Norfolk Cobbtown, it seems something nice to be able to drive down through there and not be wallowing in mud and everything in the springtime. And that road turned out pretty decent, I think. And so if you can get some more done, even if you do 1 or 2 short ones this year, like Collarwood Road, South Chesterdean Road, if you had a little money, and Dave mentioned it might be, if you wanted to do some of that, because that's all in the future. And we're doing a certain amount of bush cutting get to be a big thing now, getting trees cut back. And maintaining what we do have, ditching and everything. So any questions you want to ask me?
I chime in just a little bit, Bernard, just to let everybody know that weather caught us before the pavers showed up in the current year. So, or in this past summer season, we'll be looking to do what's in the current year's budget was Moody Mountain Road and Thurlow Road, as Bernard said. So those we'll look to do early this year, early in 2021, within the current budget. And then what's planned for this upcoming fiscal year, in keeping with our road surface maintenance plan, is Duck Trap Road and Howell Point Road. And then anything beyond, and that's what's included in the budget on page 15 that you're all looking at or have available. And then we do have some funds that we've been saving in the capital improvement plan. And that's where those the bigger culverts that Bernard talked about, we talked briefly about those last night, where those will be funded from, and where we funded future road improvements for upgrading the roads when you decide to do that. I think we talked a little bit about it last night, but this is also the 4th year of our 5-year winter roads maintenance agreement with Farley Inc. So we've got to keep in mind that we'll have a known cost for next year's budget as well, but then we'll be looking at re-examining the program to see if we want to make any changes, and going out to bid probably 18 months from now, so we have that known for the future and that as well. With that, there's Bernard's here. I want couple of, just going to scan down through here and see if there's any big changes. The biggest change is in the negative direction, which is in the paving monies. In that we have a multi-year plan of resurfacing that was developed well before my arrival, and has been, Bernard and I have tweaked it over the last period of time that I've been here, and realigned some of that to better match up with the conditions of the roads. But so where was I going? So last year we had, or the year 2019, we did Youngtown Road, which is one of our longer roads to pave all at once, and that's why the cost was up pretty heavy in for fiscal year 2020. We expend $260,000. This year's roads aren't as long, aren't as wide, and so the request is down. We try to keep that somewhere near the same from year to year, but when you get a long road, unless you're going to break it up and do, 2/3 of it one year and then the other third the other, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Can't, unless we add additional roads in, we're going to have some ups and downs in that, and that's why that request is down a bit. There, now I'll stop and you can quiz Bernard.
What was that, Dave?
I'm gonna throw it to the crowd, Bernard, to quiz you on, hot and heavy now.
All right, I caught that part. Okay.
Yeah, Kern.
With the not getting the roads paved before weather hit, so to speak, I think, I don't know if it was weather that kept them from paving, but they just didn't get to us. And if I remember correctly, this particular company has done this to us before. My question is, when things break and we're into springtime or starting into the summer, and we're ready to get these roads taken care of that should have been done in the end of the previous summer, are we obligated to go with that contractor, or can we, if I remember correctly, in that contract, they had to get it done by a specific date, and it didn't happen. So are we obligated to them, or can we go with somebody else, somebody who is serious about our business?
We are not
I was
obligated.
saying, Dave.
What?
Okay, Dave. Okay, Dave, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we are not obligated
Go
to
ahead, Dave.
And in fact, we will be looking to most likely to change some of our contract assurances so that we don't end up down this road again. And it'll be up to the Board of Selectmen whether or not even if they were low bidder, whether or not you would choose to go down that road. There we go. There's a pun. All things intended there.
In other words, they had dates to get the job done in plenty of time for winter, and in other words, they didn't do it, so they broke their contract.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, Bernard, this was the same company that we were very, very skeptical about when the time before this one, that they didn't get it done. They got things done late, and we were concerned about frost.
Right.
And I think when it came time to approve this contract that didn't get fulfilled, I think I had some reservations about using them, but there was a significant amount of difference between them and the next bidder, and we elected to go with them. I'm pretty timid, so I know we're just doing presentation of budgets tonight, and we don't want to get into a lot of conversation about this, but I think that should be on our radar going forward. This certainly is going to be on mine as long as I'm in office.
Yeah, it needs to be on
We're
everybody's.
better off we're better off if we can get them in earlier, to the later summer to get
Absolutely.
the job done. So, yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
you're
Great.
welcome.
Good question, Kern. Certainly something to keep in our minds as we move forward. Gary, you've got your hand up.
Just a quick comment. I'm not sure if the town operates like this, but in my past life, when we had construction contracts, whatever, we would put a penalty clause in there. If they didn't complete the job by a certain period of time, they would be penalized for that. It kind of incentivizes them to make sure it's done. Is that something you're allowed to do in the town? I'm not quite sure the politics behind that. But that is an incentive for them to do what they say they're going to do. And you can also we've also put incentive if they finish ahead of schedule too. So, it helps them both ways, but that's something you might consider.
Yeah, we have both penalties and certain assurances that didn't obviously occur in the past season. And I certainly don't want to be a defender of them. I think Bernard would tell you that paving companies are notorious for overbooking themselves and getting caught short or not completing work. We've used this company other times in the past that I'm trying to think of. Well, they did North Cobbtown Road for us. And Bernard talked about the fact that he thinks that came out pretty well. And they've done some other years for us. They did the fire station when that was constructed, not directly for us, but they all seem to be capable if you can somehow attract and keep their attention. And I think contractually, there will be changes that will keep their attention as we move forward, whether it be this company or any other company that works for us. I think Bernard.
So to add to that, we've had problem with ice sand too, not getting done. And Dave and I have fought with them, trying to get enough sand in the building for the winter. So it's not just the tire crew, it's other town contracts. Just to say, it's happened in the past with other contractors.
Yeah, Kern.
Yeah, so going forward, I think we dictate the terms and we dictate the date. We've got to have it done by a certain date. And I think that's a line drawn in the sand. And if somebody wants to work for us, our money's good. Certainly, if they did something for us and we didn't pay, they'd be all over us. So, we can't award a contract to someone who's not going to fulfill it. And in my mind, so I think going forward, we make some stipulations to keep people on their toes.
You're correct. Yeah.
Any other questions for Bernard or David on highways and bridges? I'm not seeing anybody jumping up and down, you guys.
Okay. If
Oh, Kern.
you're all set,
Kern, you had one more question?
and I'll say good night to you.
Well, I just got one more thing. It's not really a question. Bernard, where this is your last, or supposedly your last budget presentation, I just want to personally thank you for everything that you've done for this town over the last 30, 40, maybe even 50 plus years. We're going to miss you. And I hope you can help us with the transition if the taxpayers approve that, of someone to try to fill your boots. Thank you very much, my friend.
I will certainly be around, but it is my last year, and I'll just help you out if you're getting a pinch. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Bernard.
Thank you.
Bernard. Much appreciated
We
for all
see you
your
all.
work you've done.
My first time doing this, so I guess it worked out all right.
You did a great
Ain't on
job.
camera, yeah. Okay. See you all later.
Thank you, Bernard.
Bye.
You all. Bye, bye.
Hang on just a sec.
Yep.
That's kind of tough.
Sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure that he was headed in the right direction. The next, if we don't have any questions on highways and bridges, is page 16 or the next page, transfer station. Hopefully, as you all know, Lincolnville participates in the Midco Solid Waste Corporation via an interlocal agreement along with the towns of Hope, Camden, and Rockport. The budget there is established by the board of directors, of which Lincolnville has 2 members, Selectman Gerritsen and Selectman Late currently serve on that board. We don't have any options but to accept the budget as presented at this point. It is fortunately down a little bit for the coming year, and we'll take it, I think, and flip the page unless somebody's got some questions on Midco Solid Waste. Seeing none, I'm going to turn the page. Public Works Harbor. Which is page 17. There's a few changes here that I'm going to touch on, and then we'll have some explanations, some questions and whatnot. The first is Harbormaster Stipend. Yours truly got promoted to Harbormaster in the past year, perhaps on a short-term or shorter-term basis. Some of the duties and responsibilities may fall to the public facilities director, and that person may or may not assume the title of harbor master, but that's to be determined. But certainly some duties will fall there. The budget carries 0 for the harbor master stipend. We currently have an assistant harbor master or deputy harbor master. We've included the same wage as this year, up by 1.3%. Inland Harbor Master, it made no sense to me that be under Public Works Harbor. So we've moved that in this budget to the next page, which we'll talk about. We're still looking to have an Inland Harbor Master and pay them the equivalent, but to lump it in with all the marine stuff didn't make a whole lot of logic to me. I mean, an effort of a little more transparency, I guess, put it where someplace else rather than put it into the harbor. The other items down the page, we have a couple of hoists at the pier that are hydraulically operated that have a propensity to get used and break or used and need new rope replacement. We budgeted $1,000 in there for that. Maintenance repair, there's a listed general terms of what we expend maintenance repair money on. That is proposed to be, somehow that's the same, but you'll notice at the bottom of that breakdown, right in the middle of the page, we do have a new item listed there for internet for the webcam. We're still slowly but surely plugging away on having a webcam there, and we'll require an internet connection so that we'll be able to view it from anywhere in the world. Pier electricity is pretty self-explanatory. The pier has electricity that runs the hydraulic pumps for the hoist, and we have pier lights there. Memberships and training. We joined the Maine Harbor Masters Association, and we asked that the harbor master and the deputy attend the annual training put on by the Harbor Masters Association. Now, fortunately, this year it's virtual, so I'll be able to sit in the comfort of my own home office, and participate in the Harbor Masters Association training for the coming year. Wave break survey. We probably 10 or a dozen years ago now constructed a stone wave break underneath the ferry slip or adjacent to the ferry slip, not in the ferry slip. And the DEP permit we acquired for that project requires us on an annual basis to survey the beach, both north of the the causeway that goes out to the ferry and south of there to see if what we done had caused either for soil erosion or sand accretion. And after so many years, pretty much it depends on whether or not you get a big storm in advance of the survey or after. The beach has shifted a little bit, but nobody's ever said that it was associated with what the work we ever did there. Annual pier inspection is a new cost. We had a professional engineer, I think it was 5 years ago now, come and look at the pier and give us an evaluation of the structural elements that make up the pier, not the floats and not the gangways down, and not the hoist, but the piling and the stringers and the cross bracing underneath. He came back and gave us a little additional information a couple of years ago on the pier deck, which we actually had the pier deck replaced last year about this time. And I'd like to get us on a schedule to have someone come on an annual basis to document what we have and re-examine that in comparison to the baseline that was established a couple of years ago, so that we can get an annual recommendation from somebody that really knows the structural components. It is a roughly 30-year-old structure at this point. And, like most things, when they're new, you don't have to do a whole lot of maintenance to them, but as time goes on, you have to do more and more and more and more. And we need to make sure that we can keep that facility up and operating fully for the long term until it ultimately, at some point, it's going to need piling work and that type of stuff. But so we put in $1,000 for an annual pier inspection. And then at the bottom of the page lists the just the basics outline of excuse me, of the work plan for the year. It's lined up based on the fiscal year that we'd be fully operating in July through October. October-ish, we remove the seasonal floats for storage. November through April, we do snow removal at the pier as necessary. We put the walkway down by December 1st per the Selectmen's instructions. And after April 1st, it goes back up. It can be dropped down on the outer incline. And then May, we typically do the inspections of our guest moorings, of which we have 3. Clean the deck, we get ready to go, and come June, everything's back in order and in the water and looking for a successful summer season. So with that, the harbor master is prepared to try to answer any questions. Yahoo, no questions.
Nope,
Okay.
Kern. I couldn't get my unmute on fast enough. All right, Kern, what's your question?
Maybe this is not the area for this, but I was looking for, and maybe we don't need to do this, but I was looking for a line item for float replacement. I was also looking for a line item for finishing the ramp to the pier, redeck, railings if necessary, and pedestrian wait area with a roof.
Yep. I'll try to get all these, and if I don't remember them all, you remind me. First, the floats would be a capital improvement item. This is primarily an operating thing. We are in the process now of having our 4th of 5 floats constructed or replaced. It's under construction for replacement or placement in the spring. The 5th float is not to the point where it needs to be replaced based on all feedback I can get and observation of my own. So we're not looking to do that in the coming year. The capital improvement plan includes the covered walkway section or area for pedestrian. What else decking. The structural analysis we last had done, excuse me, did not identify too much of the ramp, the driveway, or whatever you want to call it, down onto the pier deck as necessary for replacement as yet. So we haven't budgeted monies to do that. It does not, visually, it's not necessarily as attractive as the new, but functionally it is sufficient. We're not running the hand trucks over it. It's structurally adequate to support the loads that it sees. And so no money's carried there. If our annual inspection yields a result that says it ought to be changed in the coming year, or hopefully we can get some sort of, short and midterm plan developed for that, we would anticipate looking at doing whatever was necessary in coming years.
Okay. The reason I asked about the ramp and everything is I thought we had a conversation about that and figured we should have gotten it done when the pier was done, and that we would pursue finishing that off. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, that's not exactly how I remember it, but we certainly can have that discussion as we move forward, if you folks want to add something additional to it. But without the, I guess without the structurally being compromised, it doesn't necessarily rise to the top of my priority list for things to budget for.
I'm going to jump on Kern's coattails with a couple of questions of things that I know we talked about, and I don't remember where they fell, whether they fell within this budget year or next. We had discussed creating a digital map and having a survey of the mooring field and harbor done, and wondering if I missed that in a line item somewhere.
Nope. What we've done is on our mooring inspection forms, we've asked the qualified mooring inspectors to actually identify lat long of the moorings they've inspected. And then the thought was to plot that on a plan to see how that matched with the plan that we already have that exists. So we're not doing a physical, physically sending a survey crew down there. And if that doesn't get us to where we need to be, then I think we'd probably be going back looking at the selectmen, perhaps looking at harbor savings to address that.
Okay. And then I know we had also discussed in doing that sort of midterm review of the pier and float plan, looking at perhaps putting into service the surplus ramp that we have with a float that is, forgive the term, floating around somewhere, and trying to have a trial dinghy float, fisherman's float. And I know we had, at our last joint harbor committee select board meeting, there was a lot of enthusiasm for that. So just wondering if there's monies existing so it doesn't need to be called out in this budget, or if we should just look at what a price tag for that would be.
That is not included in here. And I didn't come away with the same unanimity from that meeting as others, but we can certainly put that together.
Okay. And then my last detail is, I know we have discussed over the years the various preferred methods of snow removal down there at the pier. And now that we have the new decking, I know it's been bandied about here and there. And given that we're smack in the middle of our snow removal contract, not really having a lot of options, and then having a prior sort of mode of operation, but if that should be something that we look at in this next budget year of options available to us.
Yep, we did do some investigation of options earlier this year. What we are doing is basically what we've been doing to what we had done to the old, and we're really taking a look almost on an after every storm basis to see what actually is transpiring. The other part of that is after talking to some of the a little bit more to the structural guy that looked at the deck and getting a 30-year life out of it, he thought was pretty extraordinary to begin with, but we are using that on a heavier basis, I think, in the wintertime now than we did 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something we're keeping an eyeball on for sure.
Okay. And maybe it's something we can roll into our annual inspection of the facilities too, to make that call. Okay, cool. That's all the questions I have. Anyone else? Kern's got his hand up again.
Just for clarification purposes, and I don't want to get into this tonight, but we are plowing the pier.
We are.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone jumping up and down, David.
Okay. We're going to turn the page. Look at that. We're 2 minutes early to Public Works Other. The first thing under Public Works Other, we're going to jump around a little bit on this page, is the Recreation Commission. And I'm going to go over to attendees because I saw Cheryl there before. And going to promote Cheryl to be in a panelist. So she's coming this way. Cheryl is, well, I'll let Cheryl tell you who she is. She's on the Recreation Commission. I'm not sure if she's chair, co-chair. And this is one of the ones I wanted to flag for everybody. In addition to the summary that's on page 18, there's some supplemental paperwork in the back of your budget beyond page, right behind page 25. It's not numbered page, but it's a memo from the Recreation Commission, goes on for 4 or 5 pages. And there's Cheryl.
Hi.
So I think the Recreation Commission has prepared part of the budget for what? Athletic fields and Breezemere Park maintenance and maybe some others. And maybe I'll let Cheryl talk and then I'll try to fill in some blanks that she might not touch on.
Okay, I guess what we tried to do, and I'm afraid we are lacking on some estimates because we were not able to for various reasons, but basically we're asking for the usual emergency dock removal of $500. We would like to see 2 additional swim buoys. I have noticed boats coming very close to the swimmers again. And Leslie, one of our members, has noticed this because her house is right there on the pond. So we're asking to put in 2 more swim buoys to keep the boats away from the swimmers. Next would be the brown-tail moth issue. The trees are looking really bad. If the ones along the road are allowed to be eaten again this year, it's possible we could lose them. And we've already lost that big tree right down by the boat ramp. So we're looking at hopefully doing something about those trees. Leslie had an estimate for her trees, and he mentioned that he might be able to do it for about $1,800 to get rid of the brown-tail moths on, I think it's 2 or 3 trees along Norton Pond Road that are right on the park. And also, we were hoping to replace the tree that has, was knocked down in the storm. And that would be, visually, the park looks so much better with the trees. And eventually, if we have no trees, it's not going to look very good. So we're hoping to just maintain that somehow. Regarding the bandstand, that was brought up to us very late in the season. And I did try to get some people to estimate what it would cost to do some repairs to the roof. Right now, it's not bad. I mean, it can go another year or so, but we'd like to see some repairs. When I asked people to come along, the roof was already covered with snow, so we were not able to get an estimate on that. So the $3,000 was a guesstimate on the maintenance for that bandstand, but really nothing's been done other than, I guess there was some minor work done a few years ago, but nothing major has been done to maintain that. And then the trash, we would like to see something where more people had access to recycling and, you know, throwing things away in a rubbish bin. So I had attached just an example. It doesn't have to be what happens, but maybe a group project where we have some volunteers to put something together to have a receptacle there. And then the drainage at the ball fields has been an ongoing issue, and David finally got a plan from Gartley and Dorsky. So again, we do not have an estimate for that, and the $10,000 is a guesstimate, but that's something that needs to be addressed, and that was going to be done in phases. So perhaps the $10,000 would be sufficient. And as for the tennis courts, I know that wasn't a popular item last year because of the COVID and you know, it's like another expense that isn't urgent, but we'd like to see those resurfaced as well. So that's the $5,000. It does add up to a lot of money, and I don't know what else to say.
Apparently, no one else knows what to say. Oh, Kern does.
Kern's got a question.
Well, I don't know what to say, but isn't there a bandstand committee? And if so, what is their function? Because this is the first I've heard of the town maintaining roof and things of that nature on the bandstand. I guess I need to be brought up to speed on that.
I do have information on that. We did look into who was left on the bandstand committee. And I want to say, well, Leslie, one of our members, was also on that committee. And his name escapes me now.
Duke Hill.
I'm sorry?
Duke Hill.
Oh, Don Heald.
Don Heald.
Yeah.
He was contacted, and he is not, I mean, it is a non-functioning committee right now. And I think they were mostly supervising the use of the bandstand, not so much the maintenance of the bandstand. It's really not a committee anymore. And we were going to absorb that function. And I don't know where that stands right now. I know one of the other members was looking into that.
So someone has come to the rec committee and said, we are no longer a functioning committee and we need you to absorb this?
No, we reached out to Don Heald because he was the only one. And again, I didn't reach out. Someone was going to do that. I think Leslie was, because she was the other committee member that was left on that committee. And I'm sorry to say, I don't have information on what transpired. Other than that, I'm pretty sure he was agreeable to letting it become part of the Recreation Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, that originally, for the benefit of anybody that doesn't know, once that was constructed and ultimately finally paid for, the responsibilities for upkeep and maintenance fell to the town. But the town put together a bandstand trustees committee, for lack of a better word, and it was made up of one representative from the Recreation Commission, one from the Lincolnville Band, and one from the neighborhood. And then it had alternate members that mirrored that same group of three. And then it's seen its ups and downs over time. And I would say that this was in a down period of time, unfortunately, for active membership. And I think it's great that the Recreation Commission, since it sits in the middle of the park, is at least put an eyeball to it and brought forth something.
Oh,
It was,
absolutely.
it was probably, I don't know how many years ago it was now. We had that, the roof was, the shingles on the roof, it has cedar shingles.
Mm.
The roof, we had those treated, and then, you know, the deck and the posts and all that other stuff were cleaned and then re-stained or some sort of protective coating put on them. But it's rapid. If it's not there again, it's approaching the need for that again, for sure.
So Cheryl, did you say that there was something in progress as far as an estimate on roofing? Because that I feel that'll be a fair amount more than $3,000.
Well, I agree with you because they are cedar shingles, and what happens is it's the ridge vents or the ridges that are, you know, not the vents, but the ridges that go up along the sides of each of the edges of the roof are the ones that are in need of repair, and you can't walk on the roof because you're risking ruining the rest of it. So it's a dicey thing. I had a couple people just did not want to get involved in an estimate without saying that it's possible they would have to do the entire roof.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hard thing. I did have someone who was willing to do the estimate, but again, it's been snowing and covered with snow for forever now.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking for a little clarity on the tennis court resurfacing. I know we discussed that last night under the capital improvement program, and the FY22 request was more than what you're requesting. So I'm just wondering the discrepancy in those numbers.
I am not aware. This is something that I sort of got in the middle of, and I am not in the loop as to why it's $5,000. That was something that I believe Stephanie was involved with. And I honestly can't answer your question. I don't know where the $5,000 came from. I think it's a repeat of what was requested last year from the Recreation Commission that was turned down because of the COVID and something that wasn't really necessary at the time.
Sure. Yeah. David, is this just a circumstance of shooting for the moon and seeing what sticks?
No, I think it was a circumstance of where we put some money aside in year one. We didn't put any money aside in year two because you cut it out. And this is year three, so it has the request for year two and year three in it.
Oh.
To get us, you know, to the promised land, so to speak.
Gotcha.
Okay. I guess I wasn't trying to reach for the promised land only because there were so many other things on the budget. So I think the committee decided to not ask for 2 years worth.
Sure, fair enough. Okay, I just wanted to make sure which goal we're shooting for. Josh, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Cheryl, I was just curious under the brown-tailed moth mitigation tree replacement. For brown-tailed moth mitigation, is that specifically trimming nests?
Yes.
Okay. And then how much is the tree replacement part of that $2,400 figure?
Again, we didn't have a hard figure on that. It would probably be the difference, say $600 for a fairly good sized tree that would be able to be planted where the one that was taken down used to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just for everybody's benefit, that tree that was taken down was directly adjacent to the boat launching ramp. It was a mature tree that about half of it was dead and the other half was deemed to be a hazard.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had it removed. The stump is still there to kind of hold the bank, but just so everybody knows where that tree was or wasn't.
We also did reach out to the Conservation Commission to see if they had any plans or interest in becoming involved with the brown-tail moth issue there or the trees, and they did not seem to be, they didn't have any plans to do that.
Any other questions for Cheryl? Karen, you've got your hand up.
I'm sorry, I seem to be full of questions tonight. I promise this would be my last one on this subject. Mowing, $750. Are we still counting on the guy across the street to mow down there? And if so, that's great. And have we gotten an estimate on what it would cost if he wasn't available to do that? And the other thing is I don't see anything in here for trimming because he doesn't do trimming. So
Right. Right. I had forgotten about the trimming, actually. Our son did it last year, uh, only because he wanted to help Bob out and he thought it looked better when it was trimmed. So he went down and did it for quite a bit of the summer. But yes, I think we do need to think about someone doing the trimming. And I would agree with that, Karen. Thank you. And the mowing, as far as I know, Bob would do it, but we have not really asked him. So that's another good question.
yeah, I think it's tough to assume right now. And I know that is very, very, very economical and he's a very consistent person.
Yeah.
But I fear there's going to come a time when that's not available, and donated help nowadays is very, very hard to come by. So I would like to see what it would cost to have somebody do that on a regular basis, probably mowing and trimming. I'm not saying to put that in this budget, but I think we need to have that number in mind. And I think we need to contact the individual who's been mowing it for the last 4 or 5 years and see if that's still going to be an option for us this summer.
Absolutely, you're right. I'm sorry we didn't really catch that, but you're right. That's 100% needs to be taken care of. I mean, I can reach out to Bob, certainly. He's a neighbor, so I don't mind stopping by or giving him a call and asking him what his plans are for next year, for this coming summer. I know he likes to do it, but it's a lot of work in the hot sun, so.
Dave, didn't we have a number floating around from last year for the drainage issues at the athletic fields?
Oh, we actually did.
Yes,
Yeah.
we actually have the money appropriated for that.
Right.
Or we haven't put it out to bid, so we don't know that it's adequate, but we appropriated a fair amount of money for that. For that work. I'm sorry, Karen asked that question, and that was one of the ones that I forgot to answer.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions for Cheryl? I'm not seeing any.
Yeah, but before she goes, when we're done with Breezemere Park, I think Cheryl's also going to talk about the athletic fields maintenance portion of the budget.
Oh, I mean, I can do that. I feel like I don't have a lot of control over that, so I can only comment on what was given to me. So
yeah, I mean, I don't mind talking about it either. If we want, maybe we can join together on this, Cheryl, in that athletic fields, which is a little further down the page. The Recreation Commission oversees the maintenance of the ball fields behind the school, and in conjunction with the school, in cooperation with the school, they provided staffing for a number of issues, primarily for mowing and whatnot. And we then also contract with sports fields to keep the ball fields in good turf condition and the infields graded and weeded and whatnot. So I think their proposal is in the supplemental stuff that Cheryl provided. It is their work plan. What we do is they make a recommendation for the work plan, and then we have the school see what they can do from that work plan. And then we have sports fields do the remainder. And then we budget some marking paint money and then some porta potty money, because we put a porta potty down by the fields for the summer as well. That was as quick and easy as I can cover that. Anybody have any questions on that? Can we send Cheryl? Oh, there goes Kern's hand again. I thought he was done asking questions.
Yeah, Kurt.
Well, it's in the information that was in the back of our budget packet. It mentioned something about Roundup and actually a replacement that had been used for Roundup, which is actually doing quite well. It actually mitigates the weeds almost as long as Roundup does. Now, we've made a decision as a town not to use any Roundup for obvious reasons. But my question is, has anybody done any research on that? Josh, I guess I would ask you, because I think you and I had a lot to talk about the Roundup and switching over to what we did use. Have you looked at that at all?
I haven't, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. I'm interested in that and also interested in how it changes that budget. The other thing with all of this is we need to, now that we've got this, once this gets finalized, we need to remember, like David said, to get it to the school. We also, just as a side note, we need to have the conversation about how much if our new facilities supervisor comes on board, how much he's actually going to take on with regards to the ball fields, Breesmere Park, Penobscot Park, places like that. That's all I got.
Anyone else? Yeah, Josh.
And just jumping on that, it would be great to have a breakdown of the contracted maintenance line by line, in terms of what that.
I think we do, don't we?
Yep, there is a chart in there of, it's really small, but I think
really fine print.
Yes. Yep.
Never mind. Thank you.
In the back.
Okay.
There-
And I just
there's
want
also-
to, oh, sorry, Cheryl.
Oh, that's okay. There's also a link to, and again, I didn't print out the whole things and I don't have it in front of me, but there's a link to the data sheet, on the makeup of the other chemical they're using on the property. And it's worth reading. I mean, I worked for a pesticide company for a brief period of time. And those data sheets can be pretty eye-opening.
Oh, it's an MSDS sheet.
Thanks for that.
It's just a link. It's not the sheet itself. I didn't include that because there were many pages to that, but there is a link there.
Have you had experience with anything to do with this type of alternative?
No, not at all. No, I read the sheet and it didn't sound a whole lot different than any other horrible thing that you put on grass to kill weeds, in my personal opinion.
Okay.
So.
And the budget does not include, I don't believe, include the application of that, but I'm going to we'll have to double check.
It was mentioned in there that it is more expensive than other alternatives, I believe is what they said, but that it works better.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Okay.
Any final questions? Not seeing any. Cheryl, thank you so much for this great synopsis that you've included in our packet. It's really,
thank you.
It's helpful. Thank you.
All right.
All right. I'm going to send Cheryl away. Bye, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
And let you know that while we're still on that same page of Public Works Other, one of the items you'll see is a septic disposal contract. We're required by state statute to have either have a septic disposal field or have a contract with a individual, a company that has a licensed facility. For a number of years, we've been contracting with Moore's Septic, and Corey Seekins is coming to the screen, I hope. He is the representative for Moore's Septic and can explain to you, there is a separate sheet behind the recreation, again, in the back of your packets, a one-page letter from those folks about why the change in the budgeted amounts. And where are you, Corey?
I'm here, but I'm trying to get my video to pop
Oh, there
up
we
here.
go.
Oh,
Good.
wait a minute here. Believe it or not, in the era of COVID, this is my first Zoom meeting.
Good for
Lucky you.
So, hey, look, there we go.
There he is.
Lucky you.
Yeah. So
But I don't know if you could have heard my brief intro.
I did.
All right, it's all yours.
Okay. Let me give you a brief description of the disposal process, what I like to call it a treatment process, because that's what it is, of the wastewater, the septage more specifically, that comes from Lincolnville and all of our other contracted towns. We do what's called the dewatering process, where our septage is brought to our facility, and then by mechanical means with use of a gravity separator, which is basically a large filter and polymer, we cause the solid material in the septage to separate from the water. And then, so those two pieces are treated separately. The water goes through an aeration process, much like at a wastewater treatment plant, and then is spray irrigated. The solid material, the biosolids or the sludge, as it's often referred to, is a common byproduct of wastewater treatment. So that really creates the biggest challenge from a disposal or treatment point of view. We have a license by the state DEP to compost that sludge, and have been doing so for years with quite a lot of success. In 2019, in March, we got a memorandum from DEP along with every other compost generator in the state that generates compost from wastewater biosolids. And it's reference to PFAS. And I'm sure that you guys have heard of it. If you haven't, you're going to. PFAS is a family of what are called forever chemicals. They're a fluorinated carbon, very strong, works well, but doesn't break down and lasts for a very long time. And from what I've been told, it takes about 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit to destroy the PFAS compound. So PFAS, think Gore-Tex, think stain-resistant material, think your blankets that have flame-resistant additives put in them, cosmetics, microwave popcorn bags are laced with chemicals or compounds that have PFAS chemicals in them. So where is that going to concentrate? Well, it's going to concentrate in the septic tank. So septage has PFAS in it, as does, most of the food we eat, most of the clothes we wear, things of that nature. So the DEP sent a memorandum in March of 2019 that said, everybody stop what you're doing. No more distribution of any compost or sludge byproduct until you have a sampling and analytical work plan. And then that sampling and analytical work plan has to be accompanied by testing for PFAS. This is trace amounts. We're talking parts per billion in compost and soil, and parts per trillion in drinking water and groundwater. And to be honest, the technology to test for this stuff has only been around for 3 or 4 years. So, with that, we contracted with a nutrient management specialist in Belfast, came up with a sampling and analytical work plan, and we have best management plans so that when we distribute our compost, we have like a little direction on how to use it, the safest way to use it, so that it doesn't you don't achieve the maximum contamination levels that have been set by the state of Maine in soil for these particular compounds, specifically PFOA and PFOS. So I said all that to say this, that unlike in years past where we have been able to land apply septage, this has caused land application of not only septage, but wastewater treatment plant sludge in general to be pretty much halted, because the maximum contamination limits that the state set are pretty much evident in any site that has had land application of sludge or biosolids recently in recent past. So what this has done, created really two avenues for sludge in the state. Most common now is landfill. And as much as I hate to, for the last year, all the sludge generated at our facility, instead of being composted, sent to a landfill. It's really not that much more expensive at this point to send that sludge to a landfill. It saves some of the liabilities on our end. And the only other avenue besides landfill is composting. So we can do one or the other, but it's closed off the ability for us to do any land application. And it's really put the landfills in this state in a bind, because not only are they taking sludge from out of state, but all of the in-state generators that used to land apply and use farms to do it aren't able to do that anymore. So this whole thing caused us to take a real hard look at our facility, what we're going to need to look like in 5 or 10 years from now, what kind of a financial investment we're going to need to achieve that. And so our contract prices in the past, to be honest with you, weren't really based on any real science. My wife's father owned this business since the 80s. We bought it in 2011, and it's kind of always been one of those things where, how do you come up with that price? So this year we sat down, my wife and I came up with an amount of money that, we need to get combined over 13 different towns. We made a formula, and based on volume generated by the towns, the cost that we are coming to you with is one of 4 different cost categories. And that's it. So compliance and the ability to be there and do this, it's getting more expensive. It's a far more involved process, but a better process for sure. And my long-term goal is to continue to to make compost with the sludge, because to be honest, it's too good of a material. It's too beneficial to be putting in a landfill. But right now, that's where everything is headed in the short term, so that the dust can kind of settle on the whole PFAS issue. Just as a point of reference, I can tell you that the amount that we pumped in the town of Lincolnville, or the amount that came to our facility, was 145,500 gallons. So you're not in the top price category, but you're near there. That's one of our larger towns as far as volume is concerned. Our overall company volume has doubled in the last 10 years. Another reason why we've had to, take a real hard look at, because 10 years will creep up on you fast. Soon, 10 more years, who knows that, we don't start making some changes or some improvements, things are going to pass us by. So that's the reason for the cost increase. And I'll answer any questions that anybody has.
Questions? Yeah, John.
Yes, I was just wondering where the material comes from. What tanks are you pumping out? What buildings owned by the town?
These are not buildings that are owned by the town. These are residents of the town of Lincolnville. So the state requires that the town of Lincolnville, much like you have to provide disposal for rubbish, provide disposal for septic that's generated within the town of Lincolnville. So,
Okay. Yeah, so I've hired you to come to
Yep.
my place. I had frozen pipes, but you ended up pumping my tank just so you could put your steam tubing in there and thaw them
Mhm.
out. So Lincolnville has to pay so that you can come to my house, and then I pay you as well.
Lincolnville is paying solely for a slice of the pie that I have at my disposal facility. So even though we're one company, you have to think of it at two different aspects. Anyone in the state of Maine that has a pump truck could come pump your tank out, and I am contractually obligated to make space for that material on their truck that they can dump in my facility.
I see.
It just so happens that our company owns the facility and our company owns the pump trucks and the other tools to provide the service. But it's you have to think of it in terms of being two different entities almost.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and just to chime in, residents of Lincolnville aren't required to utilize Moore's septic.
That's
for
correct.
pumping and disposal, but it's an option. The town itself is required by statute for residential, not for commercial, but for residential, that we either contract with somebody similar to Moore's to guarantee that they'll take it, or we have to have a facility of our own. I can tell you from a previous life, and probably Corey will back me up 100%, the town cannot have its own licensed facility that we would operate for, I don't know what the quote is, for whatever Moore's has offered us for this. Operating a licensed septic disposal facility, even in I won't call them the good old days, but the good old days pre-PFAS, would cost us more than whatever has been quoted.
Yeah, but by the end of this year, I will pay my nutrient specialist probably more than this contract price for just that part of the compliance component of this kind of work. So yes, it will never be cheaper than it is right now.
Any other questions? I don't see any, David.
Okay, I'll send Corey away. Thank you, Corey, for
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
for participating in this challenging setup and forum. We're glad to make this. This was your first effort. You did very well.
All right, thanks.
All right, he is going to disappear, I think. And next on our schedule is Public Works Other, which is the remainder of this page. And I'll go back to talking if everybody's ready, and then we'll hopefully get ourselves back on schedule. We're not too far away from it right now. Public Works Other, working from the top of the page to the bottom, Inland Harbormaster. This was moved from the harbor marine budget to here. Town employees and Inland Harbormaster Justin Twitchell to assist us in enforcement of inland harbor laws and rules. We pay Justin a stipend of, I don't know what it is this year. Yes, I do. $1,416. Oh, no, wrong one. Sorry. No, $1,415. And That's been adjusted in the Inland Harbormaster for the upcoming year by 1.3% to $1,434 a year, plus a FICA and Medicare contribution. We don't have any money requested for Mcgonagall dams, nor have we in the current year. We've talked about Breezemere Park. Lincolnville Beach maintenance. We have porta potties at Lincolnville Beach, some year round and more in the summer, or more frequent cleaning in the summer. We contract for beach cleaning on a every other day basis for the shoulder seasons and a daily basis in the summer. We have some monies for spring and storm cleanup if something unusual comes up, and then we have what we call beach cleaning supplies, which is primarily trash bags that go into the units at the con. Oh, that was a little. That was a little. Is anybody else getting feedback? Okay, what have I done? Does somebody have?
We may have an attendee who just jumped on that.
There, I've muted everyone. That's taking care of it, at least on my end. I'll unmute everybody too. Okay, so you should be able to unmute yourself. Maybe that'll take care of the feedback issue. Where were we? Lincolnville Beach maintenance. Veterans Park maintenance. Obviously, we've constructed a Veterans Park. We have some monies associated with upkeep and maintenance of that. We budgeted $1,000. We just talked to Corey about septic disposal contract and Cheryl about athletic fields. Duck Trap Beach is at the end of Howe Point. We have porta potty there in the summer. And then at the bottom of this page is the request for the new Penobscot Park, which is yet to be acquired by the town, but we would anticipate that it will be. We have budgeted money there for porta potties, landscape services, which would include mowing, spring and fall cleanup, vegetation control. There's some sort of, somebody tell me what that weed is that's growing up in the trees that chokes them. We need to get control of some of that. Signage, maintenance, repairs and supplies, and the possibility of a daily contract for, lack of a better word, patrol down there. That's what makes up that. And now I would open up to the floor for questions on any or all of Public Works other. Nobody dares unmute themselves for fear of massive feedback, or we've done such a good job.
I don't see anyone.
Okay. Let's see, what's next? Boards and committees on the next page. The first that we have an invited guest for is Gary from Lakes and Ponds. And I'm going to find Gary and bring him over to the group. While Gary's coming, I'll tell all the people from municipal support, stay tuned. So that would be the library, Mcgonagall Watershed Association, and the Historical Society. You're almost up. There's Gary. Welcome, Gary.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. Our budget request for this year is the same amount as it was last year, $850, and it has similar components this year. There's $600 in the budget to do testing for bacterial contamination associated with beach advisories that we've had over the years at Breezemere Park, the beach at Norton Pond. That's something that has been in our budget for the last 3 years, but we haven't needed to do the follow-up testing to do the source tracking because we've had very dry summers and we've had very few exceedances of the E. coli standard over the last 3 years. So it's something that we've got in the budget so that if we do see exceedances and swim advisories, we can follow up right away to try to get a sense as to where that might be coming from. In addition to that element of our budget, we have $250 to help us address problems that we see and arise over the course of the year. And most years we haven't had to use that amount, but we did the year that the select board sent out notices, and we put together a brochure to deal with unencapsulated polystyrene flotation in docks and floats. And for this past year, we've used some of that money to deal with the Phragmites infestation at Breezemere Park next to the boat trailer parking lot. So it's really good to have that to deal with problems as they arise. And if we don't have those issues, then we don't spend that money. And that's fundamentally the two elements in our budget.
Jordan.
Thank you. I was just curious. I know yesterday we had talked about the E. coli contamination. I was just curious that if the case arose, and I hope that this isn't being redundant, that you needed to do a PCR test to really find out whether it was an animal-based or human-based contamination. Do you have those funds?
I don't know exactly how much it would cost to have that work be done in Maine, but we'd love to be able to do that. And I think that would be the second stage if we did, as part of our tracking, did find some elevated levels. We could make some decisions about what the next step would be. If we had used most or all of the $600, we might not have enough to do that kind of work. And it might need to be something that we would have to budget for in a following year.
Would it be a lot of trouble for you to find out an estimate for those PCR tests? And I just in the worst case scenario, I just for curiosity, just to make sure that you were covered. Thank you so much.
I can take a look into that. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Just the PCR testing, by the way, would distinguish human source E. coli from animal source E. coli. So it would tell us whether or not it might be a problem with a leaking septic tank that's upstream in the inlet stream, or whether it might be associated with animals like beavers that could be in the watershed.
Any other questions for Gary?
I just have a quick one. So in a PCR test, if that sample was, let's say, mixed half human, half animal, what would the test say?
It would distinguish the various components, and I think would usually give you a percentage breakdown.
Okay.
If everyone's done quizzing Gary, I'll send him away and then talk quickly about the other boards and committee items and move on to the other guests that are lining up in the queue. Thank you. Gary. So while we're on page 19, where Lakes and Ponds was, this is also where any other committee requests would be made. The only others that we had, the selectmen didn't make one, but we have traditionally paid selectmen $1,300 stipend for your work. And we have some monies budgeted for trainings or selectmen's fund money, fund, not fund money, fund money. Sometimes in the past, if there's been something like a funeral or something of somebody that's worked, we've sent flowers from selectmen or something like that. Conservation Commission hasn't made a request for new funds for this year, but you'll note at the bottom of the page that they've asked that the funds currently in their budget be carried forward, or we asked the voters to carry that forward. The primary logic behind that is a lot of the Conservation Commission's monies were actually donated funds that they've carried from year to year, and it didn't seem appropriate to roll that into fund balance when it wasn't really intended to fund the general fund operations of the town. It was to help the Conservation Commission accomplish its missions and goals as set forth in the law and by selectmen's charges. Planning Board has a request for $2,365 for training. We do have a recording secretary that is a compensated position for the Planning Board, and then for a minimal amount of supplies for copies and whatnot that we prepare for the Planning Board. So that's a quick rundown of boards and committee requests. Anyone have any questions on any of those, or shall we turn the page to municipal support? Seeing none, let's move to page 20, municipal support. The first up will be the Historical Society. I believe that Diane O'Brien and Rosie Gary, there's Diane, are here to talk about the Historical Society, and they're on their way. I think. How are we all doing on time? 7:30. What did we kill away? 7:20. We're gaining. Rosie, Diane, anyone?
You gotta unmute yourself at the very least.
Oh, here we go. Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, there's.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
I don't know why you don't have any picture. Do you have a
Yeah.
picture?
We're just lucky. Now my screen says Rosie Gary. I gotta wake Diane up and ask her to unmute herself.
Mute.
There she
All
is.
right, there I am.
Well, we can hear you both, but
Well,
can't see
I
you,
don't
so.
have, I don't have a camera.
I do.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Diane. Why don't you go
Oh, good.
ahead with whatever
Okay.
presentation you
All
want to
right,
make.
so the Historical Society is asking for $1,000 again, as we have for many years now. This year, we're facing significant expenses. And as you may know, we're getting a lot of support in town for repairing and fixing things on the building. But now we are responsible for Seacoast Security, which the town used to pay, and probably the oil bill. We have to work this out with the LIA members. But we're asking for $1,000 support from the town. That's what I got.
Anyone have any questions for the Historical Society? I guess not. That was painless, maybe.
Thank you.
Except for the wait.
Yeah.
So if there are no questions, I'm going to send Diane back to being an attendee. And Rosie, don't go too far because you're up 3 or 4 different times.
Thanks, Diane.
I'll bring you back. Whoops, where'd you go, Rosie? I'll bring you back, Rosie, and the next time you're up.
Okay.
And up next on your list is who? Paul Leeper from the Mcgonagall Watershed Association. Here he comes. Paul, you with us?
There we go.
There we go.
I am. There we go. Good evening, folks. How are you? I guess.
Hello.
Yes. So I'm the executive director of the Mcgonagall Watershed Association. And this year we're asking for $3,600, which is the same as we've asked for the last few years. A number of you folks have heard this spiel before, but I'll go through it again. We do a number of activities and services for Lincolnville on Mcgonagall Lake and Norton Pond, as well as the other smaller ponds. The biggest thing we probably deal with is the weekly bacteria testing, where you have volunteers that test a number of different places. The big one is Breezemere Park, and we test the 3 sites on Norton Pond that we test from late May through September, and there's another 5 on Mcgonagall Lake River and Hosmer Pond. This past year, Norton Pond was tested 40 times, and in the report that you have, I said that bacteria levels never exceeded the EPA limit at Breezemere Park. That is untrue. The last time we sampled on September 30th after a big storm, we got an exceedance after discussing it with Dave Kinney and some other folks. We didn't feel a resample was necessary on that. Typically after dry spells, if we have a big gully washer of a storm, we'll get a lot of exceedances throughout the watershed. Just as stuff runs off from the surrounding shoreline. So we spend over $3,000 for that on laboratory costs and many, many volunteer hours. Remainder of the funds, one of the other important things we do is we man the boat ramps during the summertime, especially on the weekends, and using our Student Watershed Stewards program, we train local high school and college kids to identify invasive aquatic plants, do courtesy boat inspections of the boats and trailers, and upload all that information to a central clearinghouse for DEP. Last year we trained and hired 6 students, and again, I have a little typo there. I had 1,600 watercraft were inspected. In reality, we did over 2,300 last year. Last year, there was, if you went by any of the lakes and ponds, you saw a lot of activity. We had a 46% increase in inspections last year over and our next highest year. And we've been doing this for over 15 years. So the costs for 2020 were over $8,200 for that one. We also do bi-weekly water clarity and dissolved oxygen monitoring on Norton and Mcgonagall Lake, and yearly tests on Levin Cellar, Moody, and Pitcher ponds. And then Dale Doherty, our lake warden, is also there if the code enforcement officer needs to look at shoreline zoning issues or any water quality issues on either the pond or the lake. Or for instance, if the tax assessor needs to get out to someplace by boat, we're available for that. And that's pretty much it. We patrol mostly Mcgonagall and Norton Pond, but we also respond as needed to the other ponds in town as we go along. So that's pretty much a quick overview of what the Watershed Association does. And if you folks have any questions, I'm here.
Any questions for Paul? I don't see anyone jumping up and down.
Thank you, Paul.
Just one comment. There's a comment about PCR testing. A number of years ago, we did a bacteria source tracking at Breezemere when we were getting a number of exceedances there. And we did some at that point. The closest and most cost-effective way of doing that was overnighting the samples down to Florida to a lab. I suspect these days there's labs a lot closer, and it may well be a little bit cheaper these days to run that. But as Gary said, the first step is to take some extra samples around and sort of try to narrow down where we're getting the bacteria from. And then the second step is to figure out whether it's human related or animal. Last year, we got a number of exceedances at the culvert where we call it the Drake's Corner culvert, where the inlet to Norton Pond, if you will. And our volunteers would go down there and take samples, and we would get some exceedances there. But there was also an active beaver dam being built right inside the culvert all summer long. So if you were going to get animal-based, beaver-based E. coli readings, we couldn't have picked a better place to do it. And I believe that dam has been removed, but I suspect the beavers have not been, and they'll probably be back again next spring, starting all over again. So.
Anything else for Paul? If not, thank you for your patience as you waited in the queue, and I'll send him away and bring up the next person that's waiting in the queue.
Thank you so
Paul.
much.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, I believe, are cemeteries, and we'll bring Mr. Gary back to talk to us all again. And there he is.
How we
Rosie
doing?
Gary, the cemetery trustee chair. You're up.
So we've had a couple of meetings, but we really haven't been doing a whole lot of meetings right now because of the COVID. It's hard to. It's really a hands-on meeting. We're trying to meet at the cemeteries and do some things. It's been pretty good participation in that. I would say that we're pretty much keeping the budget the same for this year, but hopefully with we have some big plans in the works, and with this, hopefully the COVID thing will be over, and we can move forward with what needs to be done to our cemeteries. There's a lot of work out there that needs to be done. Even though the town of Lincolnville doesn't own any cemeteries, we're still responsible for them. Karen.
Karen, you're muted.
You're muted.
My wife would like to know that. Um, I got to be real honest with you. I was absolutely, completely disappointed with the way the cemeteries were taken care of last summer. I know for a fact that there were groups that were rounded up to mow cemeteries in this town, and there was no money. There was actually personal money put in to pay the people who did it. I hope, even though the town doesn't have anything to do with it, so to speak, we have to maintain it. I hope someone can organize this and do what is right for these cemeteries in a respectful way. I have never been more embarrassed in my whole life in the way that our cemeteries were taken care of last year, especially around Memorial Day. And I am speaking directly of the two cemeteries that are up the road from my house. And I've been to others. Some are good, some aren't. I think it's very disrespectful. I've had conversations with people who approached me while I was mowing a cemetery, and they're not happy either. So I would just like to say that I hope someone takes this by the neck and does the right thing with it.
I agree with you 100%. And I'm in hopes that that will not happen again, Karen. I just took on the, as you know, I just took on the trustees thing, and I think it was September was the appointment. Like I said, we're working on it. It's real hard to try to get the trustees together, but I really, really am also concerned on the same things, the same concern that you have. And I'm really hoping to move forward with this and get a lot more done.
Okay, I'm glad that there's some interest there. I know it's tough to look a taxpayer in the eye after they've voted to approve money appropriated for cemetery maintenance and not being able to tell them why there's no money and the cemeteries haven't been mowed. And I have faced that. I did last summer, and that was not a good feeling. So if the town needs to take it over, then that's fine, so be it. But there's a certain amount of respect there, and I just, it's got to change, and I hope it does.
Well, I've just to chime in for everybody that doesn't know, I faced that same question for about 18 years, and it's very challenging. But in defense of the cemetery trustees and the town, these aren't town cemeteries, or all of these aren't town cemeteries. And the town only has certain obligations in cemeteries that aren't the towns, and that primary focus is on veterans' graves. It is, I know it's not the same, but I'm gonna draw a parallel. If my neighbor doesn't mow his lawn, the town of Lincolnville can't go on my neighbor's property and mow that lawn. That's not a town. The town is obliged to do certain things by law, or allowed to do certain things by law, but these cemeteries aren't ours. All of them aren't ours to maintain. If somebody that has the responsibilities for maintaining them doesn't want to do that, we can't compel them to do that. They could come to us and say, can you take over our cemetery? And the answer is no, not without somebody making an offer and the town actually accepting that offer. So for a lot of these cemeteries, they are private cemeteries. They're not town, and the town does not have a legal nor a legal obligation to maintain them, or even the legal right to maintain them. We will assist. Now, if something is old and abandoned, we have certain, on ancient burying grounds, we have certain other responsibilities. But if the organizations that are responsible for the maintenance and upkeep aren't going to do that, they need to come to the Board of Selectmen and say, it is beyond our capabilities and control. Can you help us? Can you do this for us? And I'm fairly certain cemetery trustees and the Board of Selectmen would be supportive of that. But for somebody to, I know they'd like to say it's our responsibility, but it is not yet that. And we'll work in partnership with anybody to see that those that lived here before us are taken care of. But people need to be understanding that without somebody asking for help, we can't kick the door in and do it. We could go to these people or these organizations and say, do you want help? And we've done that for some in the past, but I firmly believe that, as Rosie and Kern both said, it is disrespectful for the people that are in those cemeteries. But I don't want people that are watching or anybody here to think that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, even if we are appropriating money for the cemetery trustees. Yeah, I'm done with my rant on that.
One of the things that we have to be really, really careful, as David has just said, you have to walk on eggshells with some of these cemeteries. And if there is an organization, like for instance, Maplewood has an they're their own cemetery, they have their own organization. And what the trustees are trying to do right now is just say, if you need anything, would you please let us know so that we can help or that we can do something? And that we're just trying to maintain and build a relationship with that. But when I know what Kern is talking about, and when it's almost derelict, we're working very closely with trying to come up with a plan to take care of things like that, Kern. I'm working on it.
Any other? Yeah, Kern.
Look, I know you are, and probably I seem a little hot about it. I'm hot about a few things tonight, and I shouldn't convey that here in this meeting, but this is something that really upset more than just a couple people, and it has for the last couple of years. Now, I know there's been some tension, but I hope in my heart that it gets taken care of. And like David said, I understand that we don't know that someone needs help unless they ask. If it's not working, it's not working. So just so long as that's out there. But the other thing is we are stewards of the taxpayers' money of the town of Lincolnville. And if we're giving money to a certain organization, albeit a cemetery organization or whatever it is, you got to see some type of something for their money. And for the last couple of years, there's been close to nil. I'm not saying every cemetery, but very visible cemeteries. And I know you know that, Rose, and I appreciate you taking that responsibility and try to resurrect what's going on. So I don't want to say any more. I think I've said enough. And I'm sorry if I sounded a little harsh. It's just kind of near and dear to me. That's all.
I fully understand it. And I would just say that, and I know you've been real patient, and I know a lot of the people in the town have been real patient, but if you could just bear with us a little bit, we really are working on the different cemeteries to get some sort of a plan so that we can move forward and that these things can be taken care of, what you're talking about. I'm hoping I think you'll see a big difference by next year, hopefully at this time. you might see a difference in the budget completely on that.
Well, and along those lines, Rosie, there's a proposed carry forward, and then the request for this year. And so I would love to see for our future conversations as this budget conversation goes on is a breakdown of your anticipated budget for the coming year and how you're looking to spend those funds, would be really helpful.
I will do my best on that. One of the things I really need to do is, and it's just, as you know, and I'm not using this as an excuse, but it's been a little difficult. I need to sit down with the finance director and the town administrator, and we need to spend some time, and also another individual, just sit down and really go over this and fine line it. It definitely needs to be fine lined, and I need some help from the town administrator, and I need some help from the finance director on some things. And I know the finance director needs some guidance with some things that's out there pending, and I'm in hopes that this will I'm hoping by spring that things we'll be able to sit down and do that. A Zoom meeting for that is just not going to work because I need to have another individual there, and they can't Zoom. So
Sure.
I need.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you can understand there's a significant chunk of change and significant chunks of change floating around out there. And then when we have the sort of emotional and philosophical difficulties of things not happening or happening, it's not a small amount of money that the cemetery is asking for. So, having some sort of accountability on the back end of what the plans are for those funds would be really helpful.
Right. The reason that I chose to be on this committee and do this was the same reasons that Kern has. And also it was the same, I'd had multiple conversations with David Barrows on the same thing. Kern and David and I have always been on pretty much the same page that this needs to be attended to. It is very important.
Yep. Well, and perhaps, as Kern alluded to, that isn't necessarily the purview of this conversation, but, a joint workshop with the selectmen, if it comes to it, to help noodle out some of these problems.
Oh, I think that's coming.
Any other questions for Rosie? I don't see anyone jumping up and down, Rose.
Don't go too far, but I'm going to send you back to being an attendee. That was quick. Let's see who's next on the list. Lincolnville Community Library. John's going to talk a little bit about that, but I think Sheila was going to go first, and she's been patiently waiting. And Kathleen was coming too, John, is that correct? Shake your head. Yeah, okay. And I don't see Lois, but she sent the yes. Is she the other Chris, maybe? We'll try.
Okay. Hi.
Hey,
There we
Sheila.
go. Hi. Hi. So yeah, hi everyone, and thanks so much for having us tonight. And thank you so much for the support of the Lincolnville Community Library from the town for the last 3 years. This year, that $1,000 we received this summer really made a significant difference. I think it was the first check and definitely the biggest check that we'd gotten for so far that year, several months when it came in August, because it's been such a different year. So that's really appreciated. I was thinking that last February at this time, actually on this very same night, the second Wednesday in February, we had a fantastic program that was done by someone who's a professor down at, or works at Bowdoin on his ski touring trip to Antarctica. We had a great turnout for that. We'd also had a program in January by a community member who talked about Revolutionary War currency. That was a great history program. And those were just two of the regular free evening talks that we do. We try to do them once or twice a month in our usual time. And again, last year at this time, we still had our several groups that were meeting regularly, a book discussion group, a knitting group, watercolor journaling, a writing group, and our fantastic children's music program that always has met once a month on a Friday morning. And we have as many as 50 people, parents, grandparents, children coming to sing and play instruments and dance. Everyone loves it. It's really popular. A lot of those programs are hosted by volunteers at the library. We have a huge team of volunteers that helps to keep things running, help staff the library. And those programs are all free. They don't cost anybody anything, and anyone can come, and very much appreciated. So we were, of course, really sad to have to close the building in March. We believed it was really important to do that for everyone's health. That was also in keeping with guidelines from the Maine State Library. Staff there have been terrific and really supportive and helpful during this whole process. Fortunately, we were still able to provide many of our important services. Our free high-speed internet service for anyone using it right outside the building. That's thanks to us being a member of the Maine School Library Network. We don't get any state funding, but we did qualify to be meet the guidelines to be a Maine public library, and so we get that service. For several years, it was free. We've recently paid a small fee, but not much compared to what we'd otherwise be charged. We have free access for patrons to the Maine Download Library, so they can borrow audio and ebooks at no charge. We pay $250 for that service, but we want to provide that for our patrons. That's very popular, and I know overall in the state that Download Library has, I think, doubled demand this last year, which is understandable. We've had many people who signed up to get library cards just so that they can access that. There's also free access to the Maine Digital Library, which has a wealth of other resources, including Ancestry, a library edition. That's the genealogical research tool. That's usually available only for people coming to the library to use it in the building, and people at home have to pay a fee. But this year, the company has extended free access for anyone using it from home. So we've been able to tell people about that, and we've had people really using it as far as we know. We could issue new library cards, which are free for all Lincolnville residents. I continue to get requests for free cards. Somebody just this last week who lives in Indiana but has town connections had written and asked if she could get one. Usually we would have people do that in person, but this year anyone can do that via email. I answered phone and email queries, help people with answering all kinds of questions about using our services, and also general queries about maybe a historical society question. I can make referrals for those. We paid the bills, which kept coming, and generally kept things running. The building, I go down regularly still to check on things, the heat, the computers, water the plants, so on. In June, we were really excited to be able to start offering curbside service. Again, that was in keeping with Maine State Library guidelines. There are very specific things about quarantining books. We quarantine them for 72 hours, how to have people come and go safely. People can order books by searching our online catalog. We have a collection of nearly 5,000 books and other materials now. Or people can call or email, and that happens often. Someone says, oh, you know what I like, or they'll say, pick me some good mysteries, I'll give suggestions, and then they can come and pick those up by appointment. And that's continued to be really popular, much appreciated. I've helped a grandmother choose books to read to her children, her grandchildren that she really misses. They live far away. Her daughter had helped her figure out how to do Zoom so she could read to her grandchildren. Recently had a parent looking for books to help her children who were having to deal with loss. We got those to her, and sometimes people just say, what do you have that's funny or a good historical novel? I need to have something to escape from all the things going on around. So again, they're always extremely grateful to be able to come and get those books. This summer, we had a great team of volunteers keeping the gardens looking beautiful at the library and the grounds. They came at least once a week to mow and water and weed, and people commented on those so frequently, just that we're coming to the library or even driving by. I think that gave people a lot of joy to see how beautiful it was. And this fall, we had a couple of virtual programs, or several actually. We've had a writing group that's kept going. I think the most popular was a program that was supported by the Maine Humanities Council. We applied for a program that they have called World in Your Library, and we were selected to have a USM professor and a woman who's the director of the Osher Mount Library there do a wonderful program on Maine history. We had 55 people, at least, as far as I could count, attend that, and the comments in the chat after were all so enthusiastic. People really appreciated that. The big thing we weren't able to do this last summer was hold our usual fundraisers. We have an annual Memorial Day plant and book sale that brings in thousands of dollars, and usually also our July picnic and auction. And together, those two events, those are our two main fundraisers. They usually meet approximately a third of our library budget. And they're also a lot of fun. They're really important, great community gatherings that we've been doing for, I think, the auction and picnic at least 8 years. We do have planned to hold whatever fundraisers we can again this year. That'll depend on what we think we can do safely. Our other donations, though, were down this year for a variety of reasons. We have some family foundations that over the last several years have given us wonderful donations, usually unsolicited, that have been provided significant support. Those didn't come through. We have a very dedicated group of people in our Friends of the Library, and they gave generously this year, but still altogether we raised only about 2/3 of the funds to meet our projected budget. So I think this year has showed us more than ever how important the library is to people, how much they love and depend on it. We're committed to doing everything possible to keep it thriving now and in the future, certainly on that day when we'll be so excited to welcome people inside again and provide our full slate of programs and services. So thank you for your support, and John Williams is going to share some slides.
Okay, Dave, so can you let me share my screen, or am I allowed now?
You should be able to find your little control panel, hit share screen, John, and have at it.
Okay.
If that doesn't work, I'm just going to adjourn the meeting and go home.
Is that working?
Yes.
Okay, still working?
Yes.
Okay, good. So if you go to page 20 in the budget document, you'll see that all of those requesting municipal support, the library is looking at a 200% increase. Everybody else is 0% or negative 100%. So we really stand out. And Sheila's done a good job of explaining that. And I just had a few slides to show to back up what she says. Okay, so who are we? Who are these volunteers? How has the pandemic affected our finances? We want to show you we are controlling our spending and how we serve the community, just have some statistics, and how do other towns support their libraries. So first of all, the library is a nonprofit corporation. We have to file with the state to maintain that status every year, and that lists the officers, so I'll quickly go through them. So Sheila is our library director. She's a professional editor and a writer and has been a reporter for the Christian Science Monitor in years past. The secretary is Barbara Gould. She's a retired education technician. I'm the new treasurer since last month. I'm a retired molecular biologist. I worked in the biotechnology industry, my career. Lois Lyman is the president of the board of directors. She's a retired professional librarian. Cindy Dunham is a retired Tanglewood 4-H camp director. She and her husband Jim built the camp up and were key people in creating this library as well. Others, the only person I haven't mentioned is Kathleen Oliver. She's also a retired professional librarian, and she was treasurer from the start of the library up until just the end of last year. Oh, and just what are we paying people? We have one paid employee, that's Sheila, at $15 an hour, and that's for 12 hours a week. And she puts in a lot of unpaid overtime, plus many volunteers that Sheila already mentioned. So how did the pandemic affect our finances? I won't go into the numbers. I'll just read the red lines here that we raised 60% less than usual. Instead of 21,000, we only raised 8,500. So we took a big hit there. Our expenses, of course, in a budget, you keep the expenses and income the same if you're nonprofit. Actually, we spent less. We were able to because there were fewer activities and there was less snow. So we were able to cut our spending by 24%, but we're still in the hole. I don't need to talk about the numbers. That supports what I just said. Except to say that receiving municipal or town support, that makes the library exempt from paying state sales tax. As Sheila had said, in 2018, we gratefully received $3,000, 2019, $3,000, 2020 down to 1,000, and 2021 we're asking for the usual 3,000 again. We have some statistics for the number of visitors that come in the library. Everybody's counted. The books checked out are counted, interlibrary loan, people attending various meetings and clubs, writing, knitting, book club, like Sheila had mentioned, other special clubs, Josh Gerritson's roadside cleanup headquarters every fall, evening programs, which are quite popular. And then also the internet that Sheila mentioned. So we keep track of that through Google Analytics. They recorded 414 sessions in the first year of recording, which was 2020. If we sum up all of that, we've got 4,500 interactions, visitors, books, meetings, internet logins. So we think we're we're important to the community where people are really using the library. And so we're very thankful for all the support we've got over the years. Many towns in Maine support their libraries. I was just curious how they do that. And so I found some Maine State Library data. 78 libraries reported municipal support, and I picked out 13 of them that are about the same size as the town of Lincolnville and have a budget about like our library. We're at 20,000. So trying to compare apples to apples as best I could. And here's the data came back. Stewart Free Library, Livermore, walk on down. We get to Lincolnville Community Library, and the $3,000 we got out of 15,000 budget in 2018, that was 20% of our budget, and we're very pleased with that, and we don't want more. That's not what this is about. It's just, I was just curious to see, and I thought it was interesting. We have very good fundraisers, and when this pandemic has passed, we'll get back on our feet again, and we'll do well. If we get our $3,000 granted this year, that would be 15% of our budget because it's grown from the 15,000 previously up to 20,000 now. We've expanded. So anyway, again, to say we've been thankful. If you can only give us 1,000 again, we'll still be very thankful for that. And with that, I can close. Thank you.
Anyone have questions for our panel of esteemed librarians and others?
I see Jordan's got his hand up.
Well, I hope that this isn't off topic or off target, but I've been reading a lot about, since the uptick in usage of ebooks, that publishers have been renegotiating and changing the costs that are passed down to libraries. And I was just concerned about that and wondering if you were aware of it. I'm sure you are. And if you anticipate that being an increased cost for you guys in the future.
I can answer that, Sheila, if you'd like.
Oh, okay, sure, go ahead.
The way that we pay for our ebooks and audiobooks is by a subscription service with the state library. So the virtual download library that we subscribe to for $250 a year, that fee is based on the population of our community. And so that we don't expect that to go up. That doesn't mean that it's not possible that it will. But we don't have actual control over it, and we don't see the cost of the books at all. We just subscribe to a library of many thousands of volumes for a flat fee each year.
Yeah, thank you.
Kern, did you have your hand up?
I did. With the coming of the pandemic and the way things have gone, there has been a reduction in hours that the library's been open. Am I correct?
Yeah, so the building hasn't been open at all. And we've been doing the curbside service. So that is, yeah, we were open about 15 hours a week in regular times. So now we have people come and pick up books by appointment.
So that would mean that you still paid wages then, because there was still someone that staffed the place.
Right. So I do most of that work from home. It's amazing how much there still is to keep going, but yeah. So the hours that the library was open, those weren't really necessarily time that the director was just at the library. We actually had volunteers that helped staff the library a lot. It didn't mean that that the director was there for all those open hours. It was a lot of the behind the scenes work and the administrative part of keeping it all going.
Okay. One last question. May
I address that just for a moment, Kern?
Sure.
Yeah.
The 15 hours a week that the 12 hours a week that we pay our director is actually not nearly enough to compensate our director for the job that they do. And we've just been really fortunate with Sheila and with Elizabeth Udi, who was director before her, that they are willing to put in volunteer hours. But most of the work that's done by the director is not at the desk in the library, so to speak. It's administrative work, the arranging of programs, the coordination of all of the different activities, the coordination of the volunteers, et cetera, take up considerably more than the 12 hours a week. And we're hoping to increase to 15 hours a week. That was our goal this year. We wanted to do that, 15 hours of paid time. We felt we were not able to do that in lieu of the current financial situation. And so we held it down to 12 paid hours, but that is a goal we have for the future.
Okay, the only other question, thank you. The only other question I have is, was there any money put into savings at all?
Not this year.
Not this year, no.
No, we had some savings and we had to take money out of those savings to pay our bills. If we hadn't had some savings, we would be in deep kimchi, as they say. But as it is, we did have some savings set aside and we were able to pay our insurance and all of our other bills that come up.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And we were also fortunate to get grants. We got a good grant this year buy books. So we've gotten it for a couple of years. And so we really cut back on using any of our other budget to do things like that and use the grant money. So
And Sheila is always on the lookout for grants. She's terrific at finding those grants and securing them.
Any other questions for the library group? I don't see anything bubbling up. Thank you for such a comprehensive presentation.
thank you. Thanks.
Thank you to John, our new treasurer. I'm grateful.
Going to send some people away.
Okay.
Nice to see you. Goodbye.
Yes, nice to see you. too.
Thanks for persevering to the end, or
Thank you.
nearer the end.
Yeah, thank you for doing this.
And let's see, I won't send John away. And I'll bring our favorite every other item person back, Mr. Gary, to address the group on Memorial Day.
Well, as you know, we didn't have a parade this year. We didn't really do a whole lot. We did place the wreaths. The color guard came and we did an unpublished kind of a private ceremony because we didn't want to have a crowd. We didn't draw any people, but we did do that. Can you hear me?
We can. Maybe
Okay.
you talk about, are we hopeful or planning for one for this year? Because this is what we're talking about.
We're planning right now. We talked about it just recently about doing a Memorial Day program, but it's just in the works. That's all. We still need the flags and the wreaths, and we're still planning. We help send some money to the Masonic Lodge because they feed the bands and the marchers and the parade. Because we do Camden, Rockport, and Lincolnville.
You know, and I think it's beneficial to just remind everybody at this point that the request for Memorial Day that is included in the budget will actually be Memorial Day 2022. Although we haven't had 2021's Memorial Day as yet, that money was budgeted and approved. But the request that is under consideration will really, the funds would be used for May, whatever the date is, 2022. So if we're not doing a in-person Memorial Day by May 2022, I'm just gonna cry. Sorry to be blunt, but.
Me too.
Any questions for Chair Gary of the Memorial Day Committee? I think we've worn him down. He's talking all these times. Seeing nobody raising their hand or jumping to unmute, I'm going to maybe send you away if I can find you again. Thanks for persevering through 3 different bring-ups.
See ya. Thanks.
Thank you, Rosie.
That brings us down to the last couple of items under municipal support. The next is general assistance. In addition to her duties as finance director, Kayla also oversees the general assistance program for the town, and she's been patiently waiting for 2 nights just to talk to you about general assistance, and I'll stop talking again.
So I have requested the same amount this year as last year for the general assistance, with what we would have expected as probably one of the more difficult years. with businesses being closed and layoffs and everything. So far this year, I've only had to expend $2,021, and that is before a 70% reimbursement from the state. So really, we've only spent $610 of the taxpayers' funds and helping our townspeople out. So I think we'll be good with the same amount for next year. I've actually been kind of surprised with how slow it's been with everything going on, and I guess in the whole country.
I would note, in addition, we are allowed by statute, if we need to expend this money, we do. It's one of the very rare instances where towns are allowed by statute to overdraft a budget. And so if we get in dire straits, that the option is available to the town. The other part of this is this money is very closely monitored. We have an ordinance that provides how it's expended, or what somebody in challenging situations has to qualify or has to meet in order to qualify. And we do have some other private donation type monies that are available to us to assist others that might not qualify for general assistance, but due to unforeseen circumstances, needs that proverbial hand up. Anybody have some questions for Kayla on that? Seeing none, I guess I'll wrap this, the last of the municipal support up. Working down the page for requests, things that we haven't already discussed. Moderator, if we have a town meeting, or when we have town meetings, even if we do it via ballot, we elect a moderator. We pay the moderator a modest sum for being moderator of the meeting. We also pay our ballot clerks that wish. Some ballot clerks volunteer and some are paid for services assisting us at elections. We have a small amount of money budgeted for the registrar of voters, basically for supplies and training in maintaining our central voter registration system. And then the last item on that page is LIA building maintenance, which obviously the town does not, or no longer owns the LIA. So we haven't budgeted any expenses for LIA building maintenance, but we obviously have in the past years expended money on that. So you'll see the monies in the budget that we've spent in the past. And that concludes 2 nights of perseverance on your behalf, or on behalf of the town, by all you folks. I'd like to say thank you. This has been a unique, hopefully unique experience in terms of how this has been presented. And again, would let everybody know that if you haven't asked questions tonight as you go through looking at this in further depth, if you have some questions, let Kayla or I know what those are, and we'll do our best to get you answers. For upcoming, the Board of Selectmen will be, it's on the draft agenda for February 22nd to seek public input in any and all items on the budget. And then the board will commence with their deliberations for additions, subtractions, changes, whatever else they wish, with the goal of having their recommendations done on March 8th or no later than March 8th, so that we can move their recommendations on to the budget committee for your consideration. So with that, if anybody's got any last minute questions, took us a little longer than anticipated. Thanks for sticking with it, but
Kern's got his hand up.
Forgive me for asking, but I can't remember when we typically get the school budget. When will we see that?
Kayla, do you know what their tentative schedule is for review? We will ultimately they have to have it for public hearing later in April. I haven't seen a draft as yet, but I don't know what their schedule is. Do you happen to know that?
No, I do know that the school board meets on the first Monday of every month. So my guess would be that the school board should be looking at it at March 1st. John may be able to say if they've actually received a copy of it yet or not.
Yep, we're on the second draft, just sent out yesterday by Paul Russo. So I guess that's what we'll be considering at our March meeting. And I can't remember the date when we're supposed to deliver the completed budget. I know it's earlier this year than before, and I'd have to go look it up, but I have a date. Yeah.
I believe I did just get an email, not just, but within the last week or so from Superintendent Clark. And apparently their school budgets have been authorized once again to be voted upon by referendum ballot versus the open meeting and then a validation question. So I think and hope that the plan would be that we would do that simultaneously when we do the municipal budget approval in June.
Any other questions from the budget committee? Not seeing anybody going crazy. Anything else from the Board of Selectmen? If there's nothing else from the Board of Selectmen, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Barnett Parker, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson?
Yes.
Selectman Ray?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your hard work and diligence.